Hey everyone, I'm Army Gaming, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a monster analysis on Draghar. Draghar is the newest and latest light legendary monster available in the Dragon Awakening maze. He's the second to last monster, he's a light legendary attacker, and so let's get right into his analysis. This monster boasts a life of 38,906, and in the light category, that is an extremely high life stat. Clepium is currently in first place with 45,541, followed after Clepium is War Master Elvira with 41,922, and then is Vera with 40,112, and now in fourth place we have Draghar. I should also add that he's actually tied with Grumpix and Mishka with a life stat of 38,906, but then what sets this light attacker from the other ones like Grumpix is his power stat. This monster's power stat is 36,030, which is officially the highest light power stat in the whole entire game. He overtook Grumpix, who had the previous highest power stat with 3619, and then other strong ones include Patreon with 3552, Mishka has 3542, and then previously it was Lathe and Taiga at 3498. And so everyone, say hello to the monster who's officially the strongest light legendary attacker, just in terms of power stat. Okay, we're not even diving into the skills yet. I mean just the power stat. As for his speed, it's 3454, which isn't anything too amazing. That doesn't even matter. For attackers, their only importance is to attack. Their speed stat is honestly pretty much irrelevant. In terms of his trait, he has Hardened, and then he has Area Sunburn. So, just like Sherlock will start the game off by applying Ignition to the enemy team, this monster will start the game off by applying Sunburn to the enemy team, which is really nice because when an enemy monster has Sunburn, their accuracy is also reduced by 15%. So not only are they losing HP, they also have a greater chance to miss attacks. And this is just by having Draghar on your team. He doesn't even need to do anything other than to be on your team, which is really nice. In terms of relics, what's really interesting is that this monster, who's a dragon, can hold a sword relic. So obviously sword relics, they get a bad rap. They're not really the best relics in the game, unless you're an attacker, like Draghar is, because then you can take advantage of the Chikugan sword, you can take advantage of like Solaris' sword. If you happen to have a monster that can apply nightmares, or anyone on your team, Draghar can actually apply nightmares himself, then you can take advantage of Nishant's sword. So definitely not a bad relic for this monster. And then you can also hold the trap relic. So depending on what you have, the Mantis Claw trap, the Oblation trap is really popular with players. When your HP drops below a certain percent, below 50%, you drain stamina from all of the enemy monsters. This could be really good on a monster like Draghar, who is the main threat, or one of the main threats. You know, the enemy player is going to want to take out your Draghar before he takes you out. So if they damage him, they can't OTK him, he's going to be draining stamina thanks to the Oblation trap. And in terms of bugs, he's an Evil Legions monster, a Winged monster, and a Dragon monster. So with that being said, let's just jump into the skills, starting off with Light but Evil. Deals heavy light damage to one enemy, applies guard down to one enemy. So here, heavy light damage is 50 damage, it's on a 1-turn cooldown, costs 22 stamina, and guard down makes so your attacks always land. So you can kind of see this as it's a skill that deals damage and also sets up for a future attack. It's a skill group 1 skill, so we can't really expect too much out of it, so let's keep on going. Ancient Dragon, this one deals moderate special damage to one enemy, it applies bleed, and it applies nightmares. It's 40 damage and it's spammable, so if you're ever in a scenario where you know the enemy monsters can activate cooldowns, Ancient Dragon, if you look at the cooldown on all the other skills, this is the only spammable skill. So Ancient Dragon might be a skill you bring just for those specific scenarios where you know you're going to get hit with cooldowns activated and you have no other way of countering. Because this way you can deal some damage, you can also apply some bleed and some nightmares, and if you have Nishant's sword, you know that can also take effect. So it's just something to consider. Flight to the Sun, this skill applies double damage to itself. Unfortunately, it also applies Sunburn to itself, but it also protects you because it applies evasion to itself. So the only downside to this is, like I mentioned, Sunburn will actually reduce your accuracy. So you have a smaller likelihood of actually attacking the enemy or landing an attack, but the good thing about this skill is it does set up with double damage and you are an attacker, and then evasion will protect you. So especially if you look at the turn order and you know the enemy is going to stun you or freeze you or possess you, heck, I'd rather take a Sunburn than getting possessed. So yeah, that evasion will definitely come in handy. Moving on to tier 2 skills, we have Undead Dragon, deals moderate special damage to all enemies, applies bleed to all enemies, applies nightmares to all enemies. The AoE version of Ancient Dragons. AoE bleed, AoE nightmares, pretty straightforward, I like it. Great effort, heals itself by 25%, applies life regen to all allies. So you get an immediate 25% heal and your whole team gets life regen. A very useful supportive skill, very odd seeing it on an attacker, although it's nice to have that versatility when you need it. I will say be careful with this, especially if you're facing enemy monsters that can do some kind of skill that makes it so you get negate healing or negative healing, even worse, in which case the healing might actually work against you. but I mean, I think you're a smart enough player to realize when those situations actually happen. Fuse Radar removes positive effects from one enemy, deals heavy special damage to one enemy, disables trait, applies stun to one enemy. This is probably my favorite skill on Draghar, and this is a skill that I think makes this monster unique. More than the other skills he has, this one is truly amazing. Removing positive effects is key. It is definitely needed. In the current meta of Monster Legends, we have the Megaton Monsters. They start the game off with Megatons. Any AoE skill you throw, they absorb it. Any torture effect, they absorb it. Anything and everything, they absorb. What's more so is that there are monsters that have the taunt trait, meaning any single attack will be directed towards those monsters. And some of those taunt monsters can even apply Megatons. Aside from that, we have monsters that start the game off with evasion. If we look at the War Masters, there's War Master Elvira. If we look at individual monsters, well, we have Wasper. In terms of more War Masters, we have Ragnarok, who applies a random status caster at the start of the battle. It can be Skill Mirror, it can be Evasion, who knows what it's going to be. Maybe it's Damage Mirror. War Master Babari gives his whole team Damage Mirror. He also gives his team immunity to Torture. If you're facing a War Master Gortok, his whole team is immune to Stun. Necromancer, the whole team is immune to Possession. Oh, and Ragnarok and Necromancer, they also have the Anticipation trait. If we look around, plenty of monsters have the Anticipation trait, so it makes it really hard to use your extra turn monsters. Where was I? Oh, Ramtar, he gives his whole team Skill Mirror. There's just so many monsters that do so much. There's a lot of monsters that have the Dodge Area trait, like Helguden. Basically, if you do an AoE skill, it's not going to land on Helguden, she'll just completely dodge it. So why is Fuse Radar so good? Well, let's do the scenario. Let's say you're facing a War Master, Ramtar, who's also in a team with Helguden. So basically, any AoE skill you throw at Helguden, it's not going to land, and instead it's just going to be reflected to your whole entire team. Well, if you use Fuse Radar on that Helguden, you're going to remove the positive effect, you're going to deal some special damage, you're also going to trait disable, which means the dodge area trait on Helguden is gone, and you even get to stun the monster. So Helguden, I've seen players run her with 2 strength runes, 2 level 10 strength runes, even 3 level 10 strength runes, just because they rely on her ability to not get denied thanks to her trait. So just like that, you can counter it. The attack doesn't get reflected with Skill Mirror because you remove it, and then the dodge area trait is gone. And this can obviously work against so many monsters. It goes without saying, this is a phenomenal skill, and yes, the fact that it's single target actually helps just to counter those dodge area monsters. I am curious how this is going to work against a Neobuki, because Neobuki, keep in mind, her trait prevents her positive effects from being removed, and if we read the skill, it removes positive effects first. So I'm wondering how it clashes with Neobuki's trait, because the second part of this effect is that you deal special damage and then you trait disable. So I'm trying to imagine a scenario where you have Neobuki and Elvira, so your Neobuki has evasion, and your Neobuki also has her own trait backing her up. So you can't remove the evasion, which means you can't disable the trait. That's how I imagine it would work, right? But let's say it's not. Let's say it's Skill Mirror. Okay, assuming the Skill Mirror, you can't remove the Skill Mirror, but can you still trait disable? Can you still stun? I'm assuming yes, so Neobuki will still reflect the attack. So I'm curious to see how it works out, but I'm pretty sure it'll be what I said in the latter part. Neobuki will still reflect the attack, but then you'll still trait disable and then you'll stun. That's how I imagine it'll work out. So yeah, Fuse Radar, it's personally my favorite skill. It has a 2-turn cooldown, it deals 50 damage, but more so I care about that removing aspect, the trait disabling, and then the stunning. I just find that phenomenal. Moving on to tier 3, we have Essence Devour. Deals moderate special damage to enemies, disables traits on all enemies, applies daze to all enemies. So this is your AoE trait disable, super useful. Wasper has one, Angelica has one, but what they don't have that Draghar does have is that on top of disabling the traits, this monster even goes as far as to dazing, and dazing reduces enemy accuracy and damage output by 25%. Moving on, we have the Mark of Zygarde, and I love when a monster that's a specific element has a skill that's a different element because it just makes the monster more versatile. And so Mark of Zygarde is actually an AoE magic-based attack, not a light-based attack, a magic-based attack, which obviously makes Draghar a force to be reckoned with against other light monsters. So, you know, normally when you fight light on light, oh man, light against light, my damage attack is reduced by 50%. Well, not when you do Mark of Zygarde because it's magic-based. So this deals moderate magic damage, and it actually applies curse to all of the enemy monsters. Talk about a powerful skill, especially against the light category. And then we have Blinding Flares. This skill deals moderate light damage to all enemies. It applies guard down, which means your attacks will land, and it applies sunburn to all the enemies, and it requires cooldown. Now keep in mind, Draghar already starts the game off with sunburn, so you might find yourself not using this skill too often. However, if for whatever reason they were to clear the sunburn, if the sunburn ran out and the battle's still going on, then you can reapply the sunburn. But when you look through the skills, this monster doesn't have a strong 70 damage single target attack like some of the other attackers, right? When you look at Patreon, Lathe, Taiga, they have some strong 60, 65, 70 damage attacks. Draghar doesn't have that, but what he does have is area sunburn from the very beginning, a very powerful fuse radar that can pretty much target anyone, and Draghar doesn't even care. He's taking them down, he's trade disabling, he's immobilizing, and then he has a lot of great AoEs. He has an AoE curse that's magic based, he has an AoE sunburn and guard down, he has an AoE bleed and nightmares, and so he's just applying a bunch of tortures to the enemy monsters. And so the interesting thing about Draghar is that even though he is an attacker and he boasts a high power, you honestly don't necessarily need to run 2 strength runes. You can just get away with applying a bunch of torture skills. You can give him team speed, you can do 2 team speed and a strength, you can do single speed and team speed and strength. You can kind of just fluctuate with his runes. Heck, you can give him 2 speed runes because again, the game starts off with sunburn, you have your main denier to deny. Next turn you can do bleed and nightmares with this monster. If you turn transfer back into him, you can trade disable, you can AoE curse. Can you just imagine if you turn transfer to Draghar? So the enemy monsters will have sunburn, bleed, nightmares, and curse. That's 4 DOTs. It's insane. Incredibly powerful monster in my personal opinion. You have the sword relic to help you out. You have the trap relic to help you out. Oh, and let's talk about the ultimate. Peace, Fire, Sky. 70 damage, applies evasion to all allies. Very nice. Removes positive effects from all enemies. Very nice. Massive light damage to enemies, applies ignite to enemies. So there we have another torture. There we do have that massive light damage, however it is an alt. The evasion is very, very nice, and removing positive effects from the enemy, super, super useful, especially on this attacker monster. So yeah, once again, looking through the skill set, you don't necessarily need to go the typical attacker setup, because instead you can rely on the trait disabling. Heck, you can even run the healing skill if you find yourself needing it. So maybe this monster can even be a team speed holder, you can do 3 team speed since he relies more on DOTs. It's really up to you at the end of the day. You can make him a pure attacker that will just deal massive initial attack plus DOTs, or you can just have him do a lot of DOTs. I'm curious to know what you guys are going to say. So in the comments below, let me know what your skill set for Draghar would be, what your rune set for Draghar would be, and what kind of team situations would you put him in. That's what I really want to know from all of you guys. And so with that being said, that concludes this analysis. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Also let me know in the comments below, who will you be going for, Zygarde or Draghar?